Hi there, friends. Today I'm going to take you through my step-by-step process for drying off my dairy goats. Well, if we haven't met before, I'm Sarah from the Nest in the West, and I live here on a 2-acre homestead in Phoenix, Arizona, where we raise mini Nubian dairy goats. So today I'm going to talk all about drying off your goats, and this is a crucial part of their yearly rhythm of milk and kidding and all the things that go into keeping dairy goats. So this is a really important part of the rhythm of dairying. Goats need to freshen, that is give birth, in order to produce milk, and then they're in milk for a season of time, typically around 10 months, and then they need to take a break before kidding again, and then the cycle repeats all over again. So this break and rest from milking is really important for your doe's health. They need that rest to focus all their energy on finishing out their pregnancy and growing healthy kids and storing up reserves of calcium and fat and nourishment so that when they freshen again, they are ready for the demands that milking puts on their body. So my goats have been in milk for close to 10 months now for most of them. They kind of kidded all through March February for some of them now that I think about it, but February, March up through May for my very last one. And they're all bred now and due to kid again in March of 2026. So it's December and things are slowing down on the farm. We've got all of the flowers starting to get planted. The old crops have been pulled out. We've got a really good winter garden of greens and peas growing and carrots. And the goats have really slowed down their production over the last month or so. And I'm not making cheese anymore. I'm still making a few last batches of yogurt and chev, but my hard cheese making days have come to a close as things just slow down in preparation for rest and rejuvenation before spring starts everything over again. I need this break, honestly, as much as my goats do. They are ready to just rest and not have the routine of milking every day, and so am I. It has been a long year, and it's good to have that break of still coming out to the barn every day and seeing my girls and feeding everybody and taking care of them, but a break from the rigors of milking. And certainly a break from high peak lactation where I was making cheese twice a week and yogurt and soft cheeses and all the things. I really love that season, but it is really good to take a break. That is one of the things that I love most about dairying, actually, is that there is this cyclical rhythm, and just as you start to get tired or overwhelmed by one season, life ushers in the next season and it's time to move on to something new. So we are going to take a break from daily milking starting in January, have a good 2 months or so before the babies start coming and milking starts all over again. Okay. So a few things to note before you decide to dry off your dairy goat. Number one, don't ever attempt to dry off a goat who is in peak lactation. Unless there's some major event in her life, like she has had a severe illness or, I don't know, something else crazy happened, her body is not naturally going to want to slow down production when she's in the midst of peak lactation. So you really need at least a few months after kidding of being in milk before that goat is going to be ready to start drying off. Now, some lower producing breeds might do okay with just having their kids nursing them for an extended period of time, but most dairy goats, they're designed, their bodies are created to produce an excess amount of milk. And so it's important that you are honoring that and taking that milk. And so it is crucial that you're not attempting to dry off a doe that is producing far too much milk to do that without getting into trouble. So goats naturally start to taper down their production as they get nearer to kidding. It really is ideal to wait until your goats are bred before attempting to dry them off. You can dry them off in unique circumstances before that time, but you have a much higher chance of them easily getting bred and not getting a little too much weight on them to make it simple for breeding if you have them bred before drying them off. Once they reach about their 3rd month of pregnancy, A goat's gestation is about 5 months. So by the time they reach that 3-month mark is a natural time that their bodies are going to start tapering down their production. And most goats that are seasonal breeders will naturally start to do that as the days grow shorter and the temperatures drop too. So the basic method that I use is very gradual. I start by reducing the amount of grain that my girls are getting, and then I gradually start tapering off how much milk I am taking. And I alternate this with taking a little less milk and then milking them out completely, and then taking a little less milk and then milking them out completely. And I do that over the process of about 2 weeks to get them to the point where I can totally cold turkey dry them off. And I do this gradually because that is important for their bodies to naturally get the memo, okay, we need to stop producing so much milk. And you want it to be gradual because you don't want to run the risk of them possibly experiencing mastitis. Milking is very much a demand and supply relationship. So you or their kids or, whoever is milking your goat are providing the demand, and then the goat matches their supply to meet that demand. And so there is a bit of, like I said before, dairy goats are bred and designed to produce more milk than just their babies can take. This is a great relationship for humans and goats. So they will produce more than their babies need, regardless of you taking that milk or not. And that's where you run into mastitis problems if you try to dry them off too early. But in general, it's a demand and supply relationship. And so what we can do to stop signaling to their bodies to produce so much milk is lower their energy inputs. So that would be any grain that you're giving them. Start to back that off a little bit, and then start taking a little less milk, and doing this very gradually to avoid any risk of mastitis. Now, the reason why we cold turkey stop milking after they've gotten their supply down to a point where you can do so safely is because their body is going to create a natural plug at the end of each teat orifice, and that's going to prevent any problematic bacteria from migrating up and causing infection. And so once their body creates this plug, you don't want to mess with it. So you don't want to keep eking out just like tiny little bits of milk, just a few drops every day. That actually puts them at a higher risk for infection. So once they get down to about a pint a day is my personal preference. My goats are producing about 1 gallon a day at max. And so once they get to about a pint a day, I feel comfortable just cold turkey cutting them off. And then I don't keep milking after that. I want to give their bodies a chance to create that plug, and then I don't want to disrupt it until their babies are born. Now, if your goat has an older kid that is still nursing on her, but you need her to be dried off, or she's pregnant and you know that she needs that break, you're going to want to wean that kid and separate it for a period of time before reintroducing the kid, and that's just going to be best for your doe to give her a break. So sometimes with older kids, I find this doesn't happen as much with goats as it does with cows. Cows will nurse anything, I feel like, but my goats anyway, they tend to be pretty good about cutting their babies off when it's time. But if your goat is especially motherly and wants to keep nursing her kid, you might need to just put that kid in its own little pen or with a buddy goat somewhere else, and then reintroduce it back after your doe has had her new batch of kids. And then she's a lot less likely to allow that older kid to nurse. Now, there are a couple things I like to do to support my goats during any big life change, and fortunately drying them off is a lot less disruptive and causes a lot less stress on their body, if any, compared to when they're kidding and coming into milk or other big changes in their life. But I do like to give them support at any time that something is changing for them. And so 2 ways that I especially like to do this when I'm drying my goats off are by adding yogurt or yogurt whey to their feed. I soak their grain mash a little bit before giving it to them, and so that just gives them an extra boost of probiotics and enzymes. It's really good for them. I just use some of the yogurt that I make from their own milk. And then I also like to give them a little bit of herbal support. You could do this with a lot of different types of herbal blends. I happen to have Better Days from Meadows, and I find that's a nice gentle herbal support for them during this transition period. Okay, so Rosie here is ready to be dried off. I'm going to plan to stop milking all of my goats except for one actually in the next 2 weeks. And so what I have been doing is about a week before I started taking less milk, I reduced their grain. And so started giving just a little bit less every day. And I usually offset that with a treat of another kind, such as carrots, or I have a lot of lettuce and greens growing in the garden right now. So this morning they got some kale. Just something else to kind of keep them busy, even though they're getting a little less grain. And the reduction in grain that they're getting already lessens the demand on their bodies and stops stimulating them to produce quite so much milk. Their bodies are naturally reducing their production anyway as the days grow shorter, as their pregnancies progress. They are just getting ready to stop milking. And so it's a very natural process if you're drying a goat up when they're about 3 months pregnant. So 2 days ago, I took about 3/4 the amount that each of my goats was giving. And I left about 1/4 of the amount of milk in their udder. It's a guesstimation. I don't know exactly how much they're producing, but I have a pretty good idea after milking them this whole year. And then yesterday I took all of the milk. Now today, I'm still leaving milk in her udder. So I know she's not quite empty. Her udder doesn't feel completely empty. I can definitely get more, but I'm gonna leave it. And that's signaling to her body that we don't need as much milk. It's time to slow down. And by alternating every other day for a few days, you're allowing this process to happen gradually. And so you're not shocking her body. You're running the risk of mastitis if you just kind of stop cold turkey or have a dramatic decrease in the amount that you're taking from her. So this is like a nice gentle way to stimulate her body to produce less and less milk. So today I took about 3/4 of the milk again. Tomorrow, I'll take all of it. The next day, I'm probably going to only take about half of what she's providing. And the day after, maybe I'll take 3/4. And so gradually, we're taking less and less. Once my goats are producing a pint or less, I can stop cold turkey. I feel like that's a good way to kind of cut things off. I know that they're not running the risk of mastitis. A pint is not that much. If you're milking a lower producing goat, maybe a Nigerian dwarf, maybe if it's a first freshener, you only get a pint a day. And so maybe that would not be a good place to cut your goat off at. But I know for my girls, on average, they're producing about 1 gallon a day at peak lactation. Some of them a little more, some of them a little less. I know that when they're about a pint, I can cut them off and not run the risk of any problems. And so each time that I reduce the amount of milk, I'm reducing the amount of grain. And so the goal over the course of the next couple weeks is to get to a point where they're really not getting very much grain at all, and they're not producing very much milk at all. And at that point, we just cut them off cold turkey, and that's it. We're done milking for this season. Now, if you have a goat that has struggled with mastitis, or is just a high producer and you're concerned about mastitis, one thing you can do to help offset the risk of any problems is when you've reached the point of being ready to stop cold turkey, stop milking, give her a couple days, then do one final milking, milk everything out, and then give her an intramammary treatment to prevent mastitis. So you can do something like today, or I guess it would be tomorrow, which is meant for dairy cows, and it's an antibiotic preventative treatment. It's meant for drying them off. I personally don't love to use antibiotics when I don't need to, and I prefer more natural methods. And so I like to actually use UdderWell. It's created by Dr. Kerriman of Reverence Farms. And again, it's meant for dairy cows, but you can give half of the amount to your goats. So it would be 1 full tube of UdderWell split between the 2 halves. So 1/2 of the tube in each teat. And so you've milked them out entirely, you give them the intramammary infusion, and then don't milk them ever again. So that's just a really good homeopathic and herbal preventative measure to help decrease the risk of mastitis. Now, sometimes with a higher producing goat, they may run into some blocked ducts or a hard half of their udder and other things like that that you just want to keep an eye on. So especially if you are milking a high producing goat, keep an eye on them. Take things really slow. You can back off if it feels like they're not responding well. So this is Agnes here. She is one of my high producing goats, and she's doing really well with the drying off period, but she did develop a little bit of a hard spot on 1/2 of her udder when I first started. And so I've been keeping that side pretty well milked out. She has an uneven udder, and so that side produces a lot less milk anyway, so I don't feel like it's going to be a problem to keep that side more milked out than the other. And we're just going to take it really slow for her. But anyway, so she does have a little bit of a hard knot here, and as soon as I started applying an UdderMint sort of balm on that spot, there was an immediate reduction. It's gotten better and better every day. So I'm just going to keep doing that and keep tabs on it and make sure that it doesn't turn into anything worse. But she doesn't have any other signs of mastitis. Her udder does not feel hot or inflamed in any way. The milk is totally normal. She just got probably a bit of a blocked duct there. So you just want to keep it well milked out. You can kind of massage it, and then something like an UdderMint cream is going to be the best. So you can make your own. I actually have a really good recipe for this. I don't have any of my homemade stuff on hand right now, and so DynaMint is another good option. DynaMint, this kind anyway, it's organic approved, and it does have peppermint oil, calendula oil, eucalyptus oil, and tea tree as well. So that's a good option if you don't want to make your own. So I'm just going to rub a little bit here onto that side of her udder. She's probably going to kick at me because she's saying, hey, what is going on? I thought we were done milking for the day. And we are, girl. Just got to get this one spot here. Kind of massage that in, and she's good to go. All right, so that is my approach to drying off dairy goats, and it's worked well for me over the past many years. I'm feeling really ready right now. It's a good time to be taking a rest right around the holidays. I'm ready to take a break. And I'm also just starting to really look forward to spring kidding and new babies in the barn and all the joys of new life on the homestead. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. It really helps as I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel. And if you enjoy videos about keeping dairy goats or about goat milk cheese making, you can find lots more on my channel, Nest in the West, or at my website at www.thenestinthewest.com. There I teach the art of goat milk cheese making for homesteaders, and I have a lot of helpful articles and tutorials for taking care of your goats as well. Thanks so much for watching.